I'm just so happy that you are all here for our work session at the beginning of the year on this beautiful day. And so I want to welcome everyone. And the purpose is that we're going to have the work session pertaining to the strategic plan development, which was beautiful. And so we can have the roll call now.
Yes, ma'am. Today is January 9th, 2024. The time is 4:32 p.m. And those in attendance are Carla Urdiolo.
Here.
Joanne Harris.
Here.
Josie Martinez.
Here.
Andrea Sanchez Muniz is absent. Luana Montalvo is absent. Fernanda Cardenas.
Here.
Paul Stoll is absent. Marcy Ince is absent. Beth Graham.
Here.
Judy Cruz.
Here.
Jaspreet Kaur is absent. Acting chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, we'll have Jessica to review the work session, begin the work session with us for the strategic plan development. Thank you, Jessica.
Great. Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Just a reminder that we are live streaming, so if you can amplify as much as possible, we do have some mics around the room. I'm happy to introduce Hilda Rangel, who may not be new to most of you. She is with Orange Boy, our consultant that worked with the library on our community needs assessment and also transitioned us to our strategic plan. So we've been in partnership since pre-pandemic because of our pandemic interruption with data gathering. So we are really excited to be towards the tail end of this project. So what we're going to do today is work through some brief background information just to ground everybody, level set. I'm hoping everybody was able to view the videos online and have that background walking into this work session, and we'll take it from there. As I mentioned, as we've stated before, our strategic plan will be our blueprint for our future service delivery for the library system. And our current strategic plan that we're operating under was last developed in 2015. And so we were well underway to revise it until the pandemic hit, and we took a pause to understand that attitudes, behaviors, trends changed during the pandemic, and so we picked up as soon as we felt that it was the appropriate time to re-engage the community and finish out our community needs assessment and the data gathering. And so this has been a multi-step process. Having the same consultant with us has been beneficial to guide us through collection development of data and lead us into our strategic planning process. So they have a good understanding of San Antonio Public Library and our users and services we offer. And so we've also done a lot of engagement with library staff for engaging into the process. We've also worked with presentations to the library board. We've delivered presentations related to the community needs assessment as it progressed and concluded, and then also presentations the last several months to the library board as updates regarding the strategic plan. So this is just a quick overview of the timeline that we're operating under. We have been engaging with our library staff in work groups, which are the products of the videos that you watched on YouTube, and we have engaged the entire library team an opportunity to provide us feedback. We've worked with our library management team, which I'll go into depth further through the presentation, and today is the library board's work session to receive feedback from the library board and work through an exercise to understand the priorities of the board related to the strategic plan development. And next, following today's session, Hilda and team and I, we will go back and take all of the information that we've gathered and start writing the strategic plan. And so writing will commence, drafts will develop, and we expect to bring a draft to the library board for adoption in February of 2024. So during the February board meeting, we expect to have an action item related to the strategic plan adoption. And with that, I will turn over to Hilda.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure for me to be here every single time. I really have a special place in my heart for this project for so many reasons. It's been an incredible journey. As Jessica mentioned, we have been able to collect a lot of data, but I don't want you to think about the data in just numbers and graphs and things. I want you to think about a tool that is going to help us inform library decision making. Why is this important? Because that is going to increase, hopefully, the effectiveness when we serve our community. And when we talk about the community, is thinking about the community in all aspects. How diverse is our community in ages and cultures and languages and behaviors? So that's what we are trying to do with this strategic plan. One thing that is very important about this strategic plan, as mentioned, yes, we have the data, but we cannot do much with the data without context. That's why it's the importance of having the staff and key personnel involved in this process and now bring this information to you. Because context allows us to develop actionable items, which you will see in a couple of slides later, but that's what we did basically, is working through this process of gathering the data, identifying trends, then translating that data to stories, to context, and learning from staff and other key stakeholders about how this data is want to tell us. So when we talk about internal engagement, basically we bring these trends of the different audiences that we have throughout the data collection. We have segments that aim to help different segments of the community with a specific and intentional services, information, materials, or general support. Because as we have seen throughout this process, the community sees the library as a community anchor. It's been something that every time when we talk with everybody, regardless, it's like a teenager or senior citizen, or it's a young mom, they see the library as this library anchor that provides a place, a book, a space, a friendly face, like incredible part of the community. So, but we cannot generalize. We know we are very different, and we are having hopefully a journey throughout different library services. Like, think about yourselves, like when you come to a library, probably the first time, maybe you were a kid and you were looking for books for activities or programs, or you wanted just a place as a teenager to gather with your friends after school. But as you get older and you are maybe interested in other type of hobbies, so we wanted to try to see those things throughout different lenses. So with that being said, we develop personas. Quick example, when you think about the marketing and the retail and those big brands trying to be appealing to different groups of people or different segments, they develop marketing personas. So we usually utilize that same baseline to create these stories. But we don't want to create just a persona that is going to tell us about demographics, like it's a woman, this age, it's married or not. No, we want to get deeper and trying to really understand all those nuances that are going to help us to deliver persona that is more complex. Because this complexity is what is going to allow us to understand better how our community and our community members engage with the library. So, example of a persona, actually this is a couple, Hal and Mary. They were not couple, empty nesters. They living by themselves. They are living their golden years. And if you think about, and this is very interesting anecdotally when we were doing our data collection, They seem to love the library, but they don't see themselves at the library. Library is for young people. Library is for people who wants to read, and then you see the other side of the coin. There are seniors here who enjoy the space, who enjoy sitting, having a coffee, reading a book, reading a magazine, seeing other friends. So it's just trying to understand how this couple during their golden years are engaging with the library. And understanding a little bit of their routines, like how their routine looks like. Understanding also some of the barriers that they can potentially face. Maybe Hal is having problems and he cannot easily go to the library as he used to. Maybe they are trying to understand and embrace better technology because they want to communicate with family members, with their grandchilds. They want to be more active. They want to feel more that they are doing for the community something still if they are at home. So that's a little bit of the personas, and we developed those initial stories. And then groups internally at the library, they help us to refine based on the experiences that they see here in all the branches at all times. They say, yeah, that resonates with me, but I think we need to add this, or we need to tweak this. And that's how the data and the context works together. So then we can develop actionable items. So when I talk about the staff feedback, this customer story, we provide an initial draft, and as I mentioned, we develop a life cycle, trying to understand those different phases of our life and how we engage with the library. Just as an example, my personal experience, I'm an immigrant from Mexico City. I moved here 7 years ago. In Mexico, unfortunately, our public libraries are not like the libraries here. So when I came to the United States 7 years ago, I have a cultural barrier because I didn't know anything about my library. It was until I found a neighbor who told me, like, Hilda, you can go to the library and you can check out books, yes, but you can also take your ESL classes. I took my ESL class at my public library in Chicago. And then they told me, you can take your citizenship classes. I took my citizenship classes at my public library. So, and then I became an advocate as much as that now I'm working with over 120 libraries around the country, and I love it because I do believe in the purpose of these institutions and the work that they do, and I'm a case. They can change lives. Public library changed my life. So that's why this is very important to me. So thinking about that customer life cycle, it also opens other doors and windows for us to understand how we can support different communities and different individuals throughout their life journey. Hopefully they are living their life journey with the library. So after understanding that, we developed the tactics. Tactics or strategies, we call them, is basically the way that how potentially better serve these communities and these individuals or these segments of group, understanding all that I talked before. If we think about, again, I'm gonna take my example because it's the easiest one. A person who is facing a cultural barrier, what is gonna help to provide that engagement with the library? Maybe we can think about, okay, we can explore communication in areas where we have recently seen a lot of people new to the country, immigrants, refugees. Maybe we can take that into consideration and try to remove that cultural barrier, potential cultural barrier that they might have. Maybe they're speaking other languages. Maybe we can include communication that is bilingual. Let's look about demographics. Is English, is Chinese, is other languages, what are those languages that we can take into consideration? And then we will develop this tactic. So how is the tactics are how we are going to do this, how we are going to get the right messages to the right people at the right time, and how we are going to help them to engage with the library, stay with the library, and really find these resources, materials, spaces, whatever they need of the library. So then, as you can see, we have 11 groups. It was very interesting work, and I also want to give a shout out to all the library staff, because this is not an easy task. Like, when you think about reviewing data, thinking through it, coming back, ask questions, and let me tell you, like, asking questions is not easy, because sometimes we don't like just to, maybe, I don't know, but they came up with this incredible feedback, ideas, and we were able, working together for weeks and weeks and meetings and back and forth, to put together these tactics. And then we were able to present this internally. And let me tell you, this is, for us as a company, this is a case study that has been very successful, because the level of engagement of the staff, it was incredible. Like, we really believe that you have an amazing staff, great leadership, and you also are part of it. And I just wanted to give a shout out, because if you saw the videos, you can see that incredible work that they did, all the teams did. Okay, so before I move on to that, I know I talk a lot, and I want you to be able to ask questions and comments, and provide comments at any time, but I'll pass it on to Jessica, and then I'll come back.
Thank you, Hilda. And just to echo Hilda's sentiments, our staff were super engaged in the process. The work groups, we met every other week, and in the intervening week, they had homework, and they did it. And working with them to embrace the process was really rewarding also. When we first started, everybody went straight to tactics, because that's the easiest thing to do, is start talking about, we need to do this, we need to do that. But we worked with the staff to back it up. Why are we doing that? Who are we trying to serve? And so all of that work was a great process, and I really am proud of our staff who came together and came to consensus on which tactics to present in the video, because it was a 5-minute video. And as you know, when you were watching them, that we could only present so much in that time period. So when everybody stuck to the 5 minutes, which is awesome. So to talk through our process. So once the staff work took place and we had a list of tactics in place, what we did then was our library senior management team, which consists of our age-based coordinators, our public services administrators who oversee our branches, our capital projects team, our library services administrators. So these are our communications managers. So it's the leadership of the library team came together, led by Ramiro, Kathy, and Dale, and had discussions about the work product from the work groups. And so we looked at different areas of focus, and at that time we were still focused on the idea of the personas. The personas were how we were categorizing things. And it was working through that leadership team and then presenting to Ramiro, Kathy, and Dale weeks later the data and the information that the management team worked together, is when we realized that we need to transition. We need to shift our focus from looking at the areas, the stories, the personas, and look at some common themes that have emerged. And I'm sure as you watch the videos, you jotted down some themes that kept coming up. And so we took a step back, and I literally rewatched all the videos again and just focused on themes and what came up and which groups did those themes come up. And so we transitioned from, at that point, stories to initiatives. The information, the data stays the same, the tactics stay the same. It's just changing the lens of how you're looking at it. So this work was a heavy lift because the management team essentially wanted to look at it a different way. And we were so nimble, and Orange Boy was able to work with us to transition, and it was an easy transition. And going back to look at our staff feedback, there were a few staff members who said, why don't you look at it that way too? So it's nice to know that we were able to look at feedback and really adjust how we proceeded. So what we're going to show you are the emerging themes that we called out from the work group, and I'll let Hilda take it from here.
Thank you. So again, any questions, comments at this point? I know it's also difficult to talk about this. It's been over 2 years. But again, so where we are at is we have a great set of data that's backing up these teams. So yes, as Jessica mentioned, it was heavy lifting in the sense that we need to get back and review the data that we have, but we have all the data there, so that's the good thing. And just trying to contextualize it in a different way, so we were able to identify these teams. When we talk about teams, it's basically understanding that there's a specific need that it shows throughout different work groups or customer stories. An example, a lot of the work groups or customer stories were mentioning the importance of partnerships. We need to partner here, we need to partner there, we need to make sure that we have key partners that enable us to expand reach. We need to make sure that we have partners that help us to improve engagement or that help us to engage in a cultural-based way, things like that. We also had another thing that it was library collection. We need to focus on our library collection and revisit what we have, what are the trends of utilization for both our print collection, our digital collection. That's another theme. Outreach. This is another one that we were able to identify. Off-site services and outreach. We need to improve or explore ways to engage with non-cardholders or cardholders that potentially don't know about all the things that the library can offer. Staff and staffing. Additions for staff, maybe looking at job descriptions, looking at trainings, support our staff, things related to staff. The next thing was library spaces. When we talk about library spaces, we think about library spaces that are flexible, that are welcoming, that are safe. Library spaces that can provide us with a different space to engage with the community, not just to read books, use the computer, but reimagine the use of our library spaces and how these spaces can better serve the community. And again, our community, our library is community anchor. Digital experience theme, some examples. We talk about website redesign, trying to improve customer experience and usability, transparency and information, supporting different groups to engage with our library, with our digital library, improving the use of digital services. So those are I'm just mentioning some of the comments that we saw throughout the groups and how this team emerged. Public awareness. Yes, we are doing a lot of things and probably people doesn't know still about us. We're amazing. Yes, we need to maybe instead of doing email marketing, because we don't have, unfortunately, all the emails of all the people in San Antonio, what we can do? How we can engage with people in a different way? Is it maybe with local newspapers or local events and things like that? That's public awareness. And our programs and activities. We need to think about parents who might be challenging for them to attend story time during the day because they are working or during the week. We need to think about activities for seniors or people who are looking to embrace digital services and resources, or they just want to know how to use their iPad and things like that. Anything related to programs or activities for the community. So now let's do a quick exercise. I would like to have initial comments and feedback about these themes. Anybody would like to provide initial feedback, comments?
I just have a question to kick us off. You said that all these things were backed up by data. Is there any priority? I might have missed it because I ran out of ink and I was perplexed where I was going to get the pen from. But did you mention if there was a priority on any of these?
So,
priority is not the right word, but in terms of hierarchy.
actually, it's the right word, because strategic planning or strategic plans are aiming to be able to prioritize our work. Why? Unfortunately, we cannot do everything at the same time for everybody, and that's true. And that's why the reason of having a strategic plan, we need to prioritize. So yes, prioritizations comes here. So this is the first layer of the prioritization. We have these themes, and then we have a second layer of priorities, and Jessica can talk a little bit more about that, and then I'll come back.
So in looking and pulling these emerging themes out, for example, staff and staffing was in every single work group. There was talk about we need new staff, we need a different staffing complement. So in that sort of priority, yes, some of them were here more, you saw more than others. These are the major ones that came out. So that's why we pulled these out. And so what we've done as a team have developed initiatives that support these themes. And so you'll see that next. And what the board exercise that we're going to ask you to undertake shortly is to look at those initiatives, which are still in draft form because this is a work session, so nothing is final, to get feedback from the board on how you see the priority for those initiatives, and that's our exercise here. And then what we plan to do is then compile the data quickly while you're having refreshments, and then come back to show you the library administration's priority and to see how they align and talk through that. And then we'll go next steps from there. Does that help? Yes.
Thank you, Jessica. Anybody else? Initial comments or feedback? Yes, Beth?
I have, excuse me, some real specific questions and thoughts about the personas and that approach to developing this. Is there going to be a chance to talk about that, or is that something I should maybe put in writing and share with Jessica?
If I may, I think this is the appropriate time to discuss that. It's part of the overall conversation we're having today. So yes, we'd like to hear that.
Okay, I made a list while I was watching the videos, and I have something on almost every one. I don't want to... kind of let's get started, see if it's a question that we can address here, or if it's something we need to, so you could be a little more specific. I'll ask one of my questions, and then we can see what we think about that. Starting with the teens and tweens, I was, I don't know if concerned is the right word. I noticed that the stories for both the teens and tweens were about girls and not boys. And I'm wondering if that is going to maybe color or tint our approach to those groups, or are there plans? Because one thing I learned from Vicki Ash is that a lot of times what boys want to get from the library is very different than what girls want to get from the library. And are we going to approach that at some point? Is that in the plan? When is that going to come up?
Yeah, I can answer that question. us as consultants and data analysts, we use different layers of data. One is demographic, for sure, which entails gender, race, age, and all the demographic data. But when it comes to the library, we also like to layer the behavioral data. Because usually, and now if you are seeing like, there's no more like a specific gender, it's more like understanding where the group in this age engage, how they engage with the library. How are the things, or what are the things that they embrace and they like about the library? And yes, I do agree, there are going to be some difference between boys and girls, but we are trying to be more intentional at understanding this as a group and trying to understand their behaviors and trying to understand other crucial ways or items that can affect this behavior. For example, they are very digital savvy, but we have seen a recent trend that they are trying to avoid not having a lot of phone usage and coming back to library in person and being with their friends, trying to take like a break of that digital world. It's interesting because we have to look at these trends every single time when something happens, and things like changing the name of a social media. That can affect how they behave and how they engage, things like that. So if that answers your question, when we developed these customer stories, it was interesting that, yeah, it was girls groups, but we are trying to also identify behaviors because behaviors are more general. Another example that I like to use when we think about knitting classes. Knitting classes are for all. Like my son is 21 years old and he does crochet and he does it better than me. So just trying to understand that that's behavior. It's not about his age. He's a male and he's 21 and I'm a female and I'm 40. So it's just like, if we try just to understand those behaviors and how, because that also helps us to increase that reach, like trying to be more inclusive and try to diversify how we provide, again, services, materials, spaces, activities for all. We are a library for all. So, but yeah, does that help it? Yeah.
I see what you're aiming at. I'm just worrying that we're going to overlook or not be inclusive.
Can I share something real quick? Because tweens and teens, obviously, in the education demographic stuck out to me when we were watching it. And the tweens stuck out the most because I saw that happen to a group of 5th grade boys. They were 4th and 5th graders with me, and every day after school, they went to Cortez Library together as a cluster. No girls, just boys. They talked to the librarian there at the time. They had specific programming that they were able to tailor to them because they were the only ones going to the library.
Right.
But the situation that they described for the girls in this persona was exactly what happened to these boys. Once they reached that middle school age, it was their middle school had closed down that they were going to go to. They had to relocate to another middle school. They weren't together as a cluster. They didn't know how to voice their needs of what programs they wanted to see because they're trying to develop and figure themselves out as 6th and 7th graders. But I will say that persona, whether it was the girl or the boy, I saw it experienced by boys. So I guess that helped me see, okay, this is a girl, but knowing firsthand that I saw this happen to a group of pre-adolescent boys, I was able to kind of like, okay, so it happens to everybody. This is a common issue that they're seeing with boys and girls. But that's because I had that personal experience of seeing it. So I think that may have been maybe a harder thing with the personas, is that if you've experienced it with a certain group, you're like, oh yeah, I can relate, I see it both sides. But if you haven't, so like with, I don't know what group, I guess, I don't know what group I could like, because I kind of see all age ranges now. But maybe older adults. I may question, like, well, how come it was, a couple and not just a single adult who has no family here? Like, why wasn't that a persona? So maybe I could see, like, what you're saying there, how we need to make sure it encompasses
Right.
all groups.
And I know that there have been studies that seem to show that boys are often overlooked in the classroom, for example, because they don't engage in the approved behaviors. Girls tend to be quieter, they tend to study more, they tend to want to answer questions. And so a lot of times boys kind of get relegated to the troublemaker corner. And I know that we are a place for everybody, and that is, I think, our big, I think that's our core mission, actually, is that the library is for everybody, and I just want to be sure we're looking at everybody.
So, short answer.
Can I say something really quick? So, just to echo kind of what Andrea said, as a mom of a tween boy and a teen girl, some of the things I wrote down for tweens which applies to my boys, because I was thinking welcoming space, like they definitely want a welcoming space. Safe and secure. The programming, I think there was a mention of like a Minecraft possibility.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all into that.
Okay.
So when I heard it, I was like, oh, that would apply to like my boys and, my girl also, safe and welcoming space. So, I mean, I can see where you're coming from, but I think the overall theme was there for both genders, I think.
Fernanda.
I have a question that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. We're gonna go with you.
I'm happy to close out response to Beth's question, and then we can, if that's okay. So bottom line, Beth, absolutely, we're going to ensure that programming, services, resources are available regardless of gender. What we're aiming to do is transition from the personas, use that as the baseline from which these tactics were developed, and let those tactics and initiatives shine in the strategic plan. And those will be inclusive, as we always strive to be. And then the personas will then become part of an appendix, if you will, where it will inform how we got there, but it's not, those tactics that we're going to propose will not be gender, will ensure inclusivity. So does that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have a question. So every emergent theme has some type of expense tied to it. Do we have a budget for all these emerging themes?
No.
And, or are we just going to pick 3 and then 33% of that budget goes to all those 3?
So what we did, and this was something that was, what we told the work groups was, do not let budgets or things, if they've been told in the past, we can't do this, stop you from dreaming and thinking of how can we provide the best service to our community in those various work groups that we were working in. So right now, we do not have a budget for these items. And part of that is so that we can have a priority order and know which tactics, initiatives we're going to focus on, and the board will focus on as budget development happens, as the bond program develops, things like that. And so that'll be the driving force for potentially the next budget cycle, would be potentially the first 1, 2, 3, depending on how it rolls out, budget initiatives for the board in the library system. So right now, we do not have specific budgets tied to tactics. We don't have specific staff positions tied. It is right now just really looking at what is the need in the system and how can we, the library, meet the need of our community within that structure.
Along with that question, one of the notes that I made is I noticed that there were a number of proposals for not necessarily new departments within the library, but new areas of emphasis. And I hope that we're going to be cautious about assigning duties to a person or a group without giving them additional resources to accomplish those duties, because I have seen it happen in other organizations that, oh yeah, it'd be great to have a kindergarten cooking class, go do that. And, no information about how to do it, what you're going to use as resources, that sort of thing.
First of all, that's certainly not the plan, but we're not at that point yet of how we want to make happen those initiatives that will respond to the priorities that this is part of the work of the board and staff. The strategic plan is meant to be again, to serve as a blueprint of how the library can go beyond the impact it's having now in the community and be an aspirational library. So the heavy lifting will come after there's an agreement with the library board and administration in terms of this is what we want to be, this is how we want to continue to impact this community and make this community better. So that, again, the heavy lifting will come later in terms of, okay, so what will it take to get us there?
That makes sense.
Okay, so then we're going to talk about resources. Okay, then how do we get the resources? So there's opportunities as part of the budget development process, possibly having the Library Foundation play some role in it. If it speaks to facilities, maybe bond programs. So that work will come later. So here's where we are now is getting to an agreement of what kind of library system we want to be in the future. I think we have a great library system, but I think we all can agree we can be greater and have a greater impact on the community.
And are we going to have a chance later on, and I will stop after this, this evening, are we going to consider at all how the strategic plan is going to mesh with the marketing plan for the library, or is that for later as well?
That's part of, yeah.
Okay.
And other plans too, our staffing plan, our facilities plan, our IT roadmap. It's going to, basically, we need to get this established and then see how it intersects and how we can either modify, update those other plans so that everything is in lockstep together.
All right, so again, thank you very much for your valuable contributions. Thank you, Beth. I'm happy to revisit any other questions you may have today after that, but I think that's a very important question. I just want to mention something that is important. While doing this process, and I do this always, is thinking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's very important. So we think about, that's what I wanted to mention. Yes, demographic data helps, context helps, and also behavior helps. So we're trying to always have that top of mind, how to be more diverse, welcoming, inclusive, and helping to remove different barriers so everybody feels what we are saying here. This is a library for all. Okay. Thank you. So if you're ready, now we want your feedback through an exercise. So basically, you are going to have some numbers, and we want you to assign the priorities with those numbers. So Jessica and I were going to prepare the teams that we already mentioned. We're going to put like teams, and we are going to passing some numbers as well, so you can prioritize. What is your prioritization for these teams? We want to see that. We want your feedback based on your experience. What do you think, what you have seen in the community? Again, this is the purpose of our work session, having that information and valuable feedback from all of you.
So this is the exact exercise management team and senior leadership went under. So in no order, we're going to put headers, the underline is the theme, and then the verbiage is a start of initiatives related to that theme. So the initiative verbiage is not final. It's very much in development, also as part of this work session. Everybody's going to get numbers 1 through 7, and you can place 1 being your first priority, 7 the least priority. And you only have 1 set of each number.
Yes. Yes, that's why we got rid of the posties.
Yes.
I can't have 7
And
minutes.
we also have refreshments in the round room, so as you're working through the process, you're welcome to help yourself as well.
Feel free to just walk, read. I'm here also if you have any additional questions.
I understand.
Thank you. Yes. Yes, and you are not interfering with the, I think we have like a placeholder for the live stream, so everybody knows that right now we are doing the exercise.
We're streaming. I'm glad I was behaving.
With the staffing, check staffing.
Yes. Okay, that would be this one. This is library, office. Actually, that's one of the most interesting intersections that we have
So it looks like number one, the first priority had the highest is number ones is our digital experience. Our second highest number one and is our library staff and staffing, so we put that as number 2. Third is public awareness because it had high number 2s, high number 3s, and so that fell in public awareness. When we get further down, you'll see that the numbers start to dwindle. Number 4 is partnerships because it was basically walking down. And actually looking at this, yeah, so this one's 4 partnerships, and the collections is the 5th. Library spaces and services came out number 6, and then number 7 is off-site services and outreach had the most number 7s at the bottom. So you'll see that it kind of tapers off right around here, a strong high priority. But this is essentially looking at the entire, every participant and how y'all voted and trying to get the most number 1s, the most number 2s, the most number 3s, but also trying to order within that. And what we can share with you, and so we put it here on the slide in that order. What we can share with you for purposes of discussion is the library administration's priority and how we see the various areas working within the library system. Is everybody okay? So what we, looking at the data, looking at all of the feedback from staff, our number 1 was staff and staffing. That rose to the top for us mainly because, which is number 2 for the library board here, is if you'll remember thinking back to the video, staffing was in every single video in some aspect, whether it was needing new staff members to fulfill new roles, whether it was needing additional staff to continue our current offerings, staffing was priority. So we, as a library team, felt that staffing should be our number 1 priority. So that's why. So we're in similar, board ranked at 2, library administration has it as the first priority for the library. Moving on to spaces and services. And so when we worked as a team together looking at the themes, we joined together services and spaces because we felt they went hand in hand. For example, our learn services at our library locations need the space, but we also have the service that goes with it. So we felt that those two work together. So with that in mind, we placed library spaces and services number 2 ranking. Knowing that digital experiences is very, that's our way of life right now. Website, ebooks, all of those things. Library administration looked at the work plans, the tactics, and placed digital experience as our 3rd priority. Our backbone are our collections. We're a library, so that's number 4 is where administration listed, and it looks like it's right around the same, around the same area for the board. Public awareness came in number 5, and where we as a team kind of drew a line and felt 1 through 5 were kind of our core, what we felt was the library system. And so public awareness was at the bottom of that core initiative, where awareness of our services, our resources would be number 5. And it's, top 3 with the board right here. Our last 2 were prioritized but lower for the library administration was off-site services and outreach. Off-site services are similar to our Little Red Wagon program, where they actually take a library program and provide service in the community. And then outreach is where we staff a table and provide information about the library. So those are two distinct services, but both important. So that was listed number 6, and it looks like it was similar towards the lower priority for the board. And then partnerships. That one can be a low-hanging fruit because we have partnerships right now. It's just establishing those and making a concerted effort to take a holistic vision as it relates to partnerships. So, and usually, generally speaking, partnerships are zero cost most cases. So we listed that as number 7, seeing that as low-hanging fruit. And it looks like that was dead middle for the board. But just walking through library administration's priorities and rationale for it. Purposely didn't share this with you before your exercise to get your feedback pre and post. And we can open it up for discussion to talk through. And if there's the board here as a consensus would like to make any modifications, having had a benefit of a discussion, we can certainly do that and take that approach. Questions, feedback?
I want to take the opportunity to mention another positive impact of this work. Joanne was asking a question about what I'm thinking is related to outreach, but it's staff. It's staff doing outreach. So another thing that we are going to see throughout these strategies is that we have increased of positively impact other areas. So even if the priority change, there's a possibility that we will keep impacting other areas. So, but yeah, again, if you have any initial feedback, comments now that you have seen these 2 sets of priorities.
Well, I made staff and staffing my number 1, so I definitely agree with that. But I do think we can't do anything if we don't have the staff to do it. I mean, even outreach, okay, to use an extremely maybe trivial example, I noticed that one of the things was, one of the tactics that was in the presentation was to make greater use of Smarty. Having managed the library mascot myself and been the library mascot a couple of times, I can tell you that sometimes getting somebody to wear that suit and be able to get away from their regular assignment or whatever is a hassle sometimes. And yes, it's a great awareness tool, but having the staff to just put the thing on and go out there.
And that's a perfect example. No one is mutually exclusive.
Right.
So for us to be able to enhance our outreach, we're going to need to figure out something as it relates to staff. And so no one area is in a silo. They're all interrelated in some way. So it's just the priorities help us frame what we will be focused on and working towards, that knowing that turning a key here will possibly impact another area. And that's okay. That's how it should work.
I also noticed in the video there's a lot of talk about programming and programming for working families on the weekends, and so it all goes back to staffing. So again, that's why that was high on my priority list. And I will say, maybe I didn't see library services and spaces and services, so I probably just saw more spaces, but more services goes back to staffing. So.
Well, and I think hearing the explanation you use for partnerships kind of changes what it would be. And I would definitely, just my opinion, I would deem spaces and services more important than partnerships.
Does the board feel that perhaps moving this
down the line. Do y'all feel okay with doing that? And these really sticks that we can move this. And is there a place, is there somewhere, you thinking services move up, collection move over, or y'all?
I have a question or an observation, if I may. If I'm hearing correctly, would it have made a difference to one or more board members if you had seen library services, library spaces and services?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, so that impacted their.
It did impact, that's
So,
why I
yeah,
okay.
so we moved partnerships back, and we can just rearrange. This is a working process. Service, spaces and services. Do y'all feel that needs to move up before awareness? Move up before staffing? Where would y'all like to see spaces and services?
I think it's fine there. Yeah.
You're okay there?
Because
Okay.
you need the public awareness, it doesn't matter, in my 2 cents. You can have all the staff, you can be fully staffed, you can have all the programming, you can have everything ready to go. But if the public doesn't hear about it, what good does it do to have all of that if nobody's using the services?
And then I'm thinking with the partnerships, if the staffing, if they get the type of outreach coordinator, that will incorporate the partnerships.
That's very true.
So outreach and partnership.
I would like to say, just as a comment though, under partnerships, I noticed that one of the recommendations was to develop a partnership with Meals on Wheels to help with outreach to seniors. And I just want to say, whoever came up with that, I think it's an inspiration. I thought it was a really great idea.
So we're at digital experience, library staff and staffing, public awareness third, library spaces and services, collections, offsite services and outreach, and partnerships. Is there any thought of reordering, adjusting? How is the board feeling with the order? And also, Sherry, keeping up administration's kind of the two.
It looks like it brings it more closer to alignment with the library administration, which is a good thing.
I might
Where
suggest,
did the internet services?
And digital.
Oh, digital, that first one. Because that is so important to me because, and I guess everybody, but I hate to say it and I'm embarrassed to say it, but I do not use our digital. But I tried to get in today. I had to go and then I had to get my library card out, get the number, and then with Bibliotech, they put a little icon, I press the icon, and then everything's right there. I don't have to look for a password, I don't have to look for my library. And it is, and I'm considered a senior, and it's very difficult. And I'm savvy, with internet.
That's good feedback. I was having a conversation with the staff members that I wanted to connect to this live stream. And I said, well, it's not very easy to navigate here. So there's an agreement with staff that we need to make the user digital experience much more customer friendly. And so, yeah, that's a high priority. But I hear you.
And that's an example where digital experience connects with our collections. Because, and even our programs, because if you don't know where to find a calendar for programs, so this is just, it intersects in so many ways.
And then if the calendar isn't up to date, I mean, it's up to date, but there's a program listed, and you go and you drive 10 miles, and we're not having it. But and it has happened to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that feedback.
Yeah. But I don't know if it's just if it just stays, or maybe the branch librarian doesn't have the authority to cancel it once it's on, or something like that.
That's good feedback, thank you.
And we'll follow up on that, because that's something we need to address now.
So cognizant of your time, we had envisioned today's session ending around 6 o'clock. We've got 10 minutes left. So just bringing circle, are you comfortable with how this is looking and the trajectory and how this, because what we're going to do next is take this feedback, and look at everything together and work on a draft of priority and initiatives related to this. And the verbiage will very likely change too, because we're going to wordsmith, and so it'll be different than what you see here. But same themes, same concepts, just working on the language a little bit as well.
I might suggest, but this is my suggestion, switching spaces and services and collections, and moving collections up one. But that's for everybody else to.
Personal revisions to approach you want to take?
Yes.
Change it all.
My drawing.
Maybe I was trying to make a point.
I remember.
Point was, there we go. Didn't pay attention to the rest. So be serious, you're saying?
But I'm thinking that the library's space and services, for me, is too far back, because the services, I consider that to be the programs. And when they talked about tailoring the programs to the community, that was a high priority, with working parents and because they can't get to the library for the collections.
There is no action today, but is there a consensus second? Any thoughts about two suggestions of collections and spaces and services, and adjusting those two potentially?
For library spaces, I echo the same, with the little one wanting to get to those like 10 a.m. programming. That's a little harder for me because that's nap time. So if they were either a little earlier or after 11:30, or just multiple, baby or toddler times.
So how do y'all feel about taking public awareness, keeping it in the top 5, and shifting down spaces, services, collections, public awareness rounds out the top 5?
Would y'all like to see how that looks?
That way it still prioritizes collection, but we're still prioritizing services.
And just to confirm, we're thinking top 5, right?
It's 1 through 7, but what we did internally as a management team and administrative team is usually when somebody says, what are your priorities, top 5 is a good round number. So that's where we're going to prioritize the 7. All 7 will be in the strategic plan, but when we start talking, somebody says, what's your number 1? What's your number, we want it to be able to have a good solid kind of 1 through 5 is usually a good round, but all of them are relevant and important, and they all intersect also. Any thoughts on how this landscape is looking?
I will never think that there's enough public awareness. If I could have 2 number 1s, it would be up there with number 1.
I have a marketing background, I feel the same
Yes.
draw to like, well, they don't know about it.
Yeah.
That's our perspective.
But when we think about a gateway to budget, the easiest thing to start with is our staff, our spaces, and our collection, digital or physical. And then we throw in everything else.
It sounds like everybody's feeling okay. Okay, so we will report this and incorporate it as part of developing the draft. And so you will see this again, but it'll have different words with it, same concepts. And so we'll go ahead and close out today's session.
Really quick, as Jessica mentioned, we are going to work on what is going to be our strategic plan draft, meaning with the structure, and we are going to have like more actionable words, and also we are trying to make it like thinking about people who is not familiar with what we are doing as an organization. When reads this, it really gets like intentionally we are going to do A, B, C, D. Why? Because we need to serve this type of communities, and we are going to improve, and this is how we're going to measure. So that's the next step for us. We already did that.
Just to re-elaborate, that we will, once the strategic plan has been developed, we will then realign with a facilities plan, our IT roadmap, collection development plan, and we have a prior staffing study, but we are very much focused on initiating a new staffing study based on this information in the strategic plan. So this is in the works. We will have those initiatives.
And yeah, last thing, as I mentioned, working on the integrating all the findings of this work session. Thank you for your valuable contributions. Finalize the draft of the strategic plan document, then communicate internally, and then making sure that this also communicates externally, and then implementation.
This is the easy part. The implementation is going to be where we're really going to get a lot, re-engage the staff, get the work groups reestablished, and work with the team to implement the strategic plan once adopted. So, reminder of our timeline. That is our work session today. Are there any questions? Is there something that maybe you didn't touch on that you were thinking of as you walked into today's work session?
You mentioned that approval is going to be on the February agenda. Will we get to see it before that?
Yes.
Okay, I want to thank everyone for coming again, and I want to thank Ms. Hilda and Ms. Jessica for making it such an easy chore for us and having everything so organized.
Making it so quickly.
Yes, it's standing in our time frame. Thank you. Is there any other questions or anything? Okay.
Props to the staff for such a great job.
Yes, the staff.
Yeah.
I enjoyed
The work is
it.
evident also. I was really impressed with the energy that they brought on those days. I mean, for me, I was paying attention to content, but I'm like, they're just like, they brought it.
It was almost like, we finally get a chance to say this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they were passionate about it.
Yes.
And that to me communicated as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's important.
And they have brilliant ideas, so I love the fact that you told sky's the limit, because that would lead them to dream and be creative on what could be accomplished.
And I hope that some of this trickles back through the grapevine to them, that that the board also feels, staffing top two, consistent with theirs. I think that's important for them to recognize that support.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We're adjourned.